I am Tammy Ramsey. I'm the owner of Daisy Do Right, and I am making a podcast with episodes that feature women in and around Knox County who make an impact. And today I'm very pleased to have Lisa Stepro with me. She has a fascinating story, and I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. We met at the Pantheon at an networking event. So how did you get to be at the Pantheon?
My connection with the Pantheon is through my son-in-law, whose name's Mike Jacob. He was a business owner here in Knox County with a company that was called Veritas Engineering, and I think his desire to work on things advanced a little farther than Veritas, so he sold the Veritas company to his principal engineer, and then he started another company called TerraForce, which is a robotic melon picking system here in Knox County, which for anybody that knows Knox County, it's the melon picking capital of the world. So he is tied to the Pantheon. And then my daughter, Michael's wife, is a local physician. She's a ear, nose, and throat specialist here with Good Samaritan. And I have 4 grandkids and 1 granddog that are down here in the Vincennes area.
Where do you live?
I actually live in Sullivan, born and raised. Been around this area my entire life. So have a lot of connects to Sullivan County, Vigo County, Knox County, and the surrounding area from different things I've done in my occupation. Also spent quite a bit of time working around the Evansville area. So know this area very well.
But where did you grow up at?
I grew up in Sullivan. I grew up right north of Sullivan out in the country. Mom and Dad had 4 kids, so we lived on a little farm north of town.
Okay. So you went to Sullivan High School?
I did go to Sullivan High School, yes.
And did you go to college after?
I did go to college. I went to Indiana State and got my bachelor's degree. And then I started a couple different times on my master's, and the timing wasn't right. And now I don't know that I'll go back, but I started a master's at ISU and then also one at Ball State.
The way I understand it, you're retired.
I am sort of retired. From the occupations that I always had, which was in HR. Well, the first half of my career was in rehab services, and the second half, starting in 2001, was strictly HR-based, HR specialist, HR manager, different things like that. So technically, I retired in 2001, but right back into the workforce I went shortly thereafter.
And you're working for your church?
Right now I'm working for my church. After I officially thought I was no longer going to be working for Veritas Engineering, I was approached by our pastor who wanted me to work 20 hours a week. So it took 3 times of him asking me, and I finally said I would work 12 hours a week. So still working, pretty much have been working ever since I officially retired from my HR manager jobs.
And where were you an HR manager?
My last job that I retired from was working in a coal mine. It's called Peabody, and the mine is Bear Run, which is down in the southern part of Sullivan County. But I'd also been in HR at Alliance Coal, which is in Gibson County. So I have experience both in working in underground mining and surface mining.
Wow, that's pretty fascinating.
That is pretty fascinating.
You also are active in volunteerism.
Correct. One of the things about where my path has taken me is all the years that I worked in HR, it was dealing with employees that maybe had health issues, mental health issues, family members that had mental health issues. We even lost a couple people to suicide in my last job. But then in July of 2019, my role changed drastically because I became a lost survivor of a suicide. It was to the fellow that we were engaged. We had our wedding rings picked out, and that did not happen. So I started about 6 months after that. I started becoming very active in suicide awareness and suicide prevention training, which has taken me a lot of different directions. Bet I had to get through COVID first. If you think back on that time, I went through the loss, and then I'm grieving the suicide loss, and then COVID hits, and then you can't go anywhere. So I had a lot of time to think on what I wanted to do to lay my path out to help others from what I had experienced.
Okay, I want to go into more of your experience and what you went through and how you got where you are. But first, I want to ask you, if we should have any kind of trigger warnings.
One of the things that I say when I do any of the speaking engagements and things that I do is when you're listening to me, if you feel yourself starting to get anxious or what I'm talking about hits too close to home, then take yourself away from it. If it's something that's bothering you, I'll have numbers at the end of our presentation where somebody can reach out to me. But the things that I do are meant to educate people. I try to present them in a way that's not very disturbing. I'll put it that way. So please, if it's too upsetting to you or you get too anxious, just step away and then reach back out to me or call 988, which is a crisis line.
Okay, and I'll have your numbers in the description of the podcast episode. So go a little deeper into what you went through.
Okay, it was a Sunday afternoon in July, and I was trying to reach Tom, who was the fellow that I was engaged to, and I couldn't get a hold of him. He was supposed to have been on his way to a doctor's appointment in Indianapolis, and so I called the neighbor and asked to check and see which car of his was in the driveway, because I knew if his work truck was there, he was gone, and if the work truck was still there, I knew that he was somewhere in the area. Anyway, so we decided that he was still in the Solomon area and not on his way to Indianapolis. So at that point, the gut feeling hit me. I ran out of work. I drove to Solomon, which is where he lived, and I walked in. And unfortunately, what I saw, I hope nobody ever would have to go through it, because I did find Tom. He had decided to end his life that day. So a lot of what happened to me that day is the reason that I picked up 6 months later and decided to try to be such an advocate, because suicide is something nobody likes to talk about. It's a situation I have. It's kind of interesting with people that are loss survivors. You most of the time go one of two ways. You remember every event that day crystal clear. You can tell every finite detail of what happened. I'm the opposite. I remember bits and pieces of that day, but I don't remember it very clearly. It may all come back someday, which I hope it really doesn't. But the thing that I do remember is when the police showed up, it was just a whirlwind of ambulance and sirens and lights and police up and down the block, and the state police had to come. And I was told to sit on the porch swing over there by myself while all this stuff was going on. So it was a situation that I continue to try to educate people about, is that I felt almost like a victim myself, because nobody knew what to do with me. I'm just sitting there and being told you can't leave until the state police talk to you, since this was a death at home. So that experience just said, I've got to do something to make a difference so people don't have to feel the way I felt that day.
So we're going to go more into what you do, but when you say they didn't know what to do with you, what resource did you have?
Honestly, and I'm not trying to downgrade anybody's roles, but I had no resources. I had zero resources that were given to me. Even my church wasn't quite sure how to respond. So no resources were given to me. I basically, after a few months, just started chipping away and finding resources on my own, which the very first one that I ran across was in Indianapolis. It was American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So I attended my very first suicide loss survivor event in November 2019 in Indianapolis. And it's that day is actually, it's legislatively put in place to be International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day. It's the Saturday before Thanksgiving every year, because people are going into the holidays. They're going into Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's and all the things people are hustling and bustling. And you have people that may need a lot of extra support around the holidays. So that's how that day got started.
Tell me more about what you're actively doing now.
Oh gosh, I have done. My path has led me a lot of different directions, because, like I said, I'm a gatekeeper trainer for QPR, which stands for Question, Persuade, and Refer. I have done trainings at North Central High School in Sullivan. I've done trainings at Sullivan High School, West Vigo, North High School in Terre Haute, churches. Even my very first event was 2 hours east of Indianapolis. Team of Mercy is also a large part of how my path has gone. They were contacted by a small school in, I believe it's Union High School, and their suicide rate of their high school kids just started spiking. So they reached out to us, and we trained the junior high and high school students, but we also had a community event the night before that, so parents and faculty and everybody could hear the information that we were presenting. So you've got Team of Mercy, which is where I first started, and then you have American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, which is very near and dear to me also. I served as an advocate this past February, went to the State House, advocated for a lot of new rules and proposed laws around suicide services for veterans, for people that are postpartum, which is a huge spike that people are seeing, that women postpartum, there's a lot of need for mental health services there. So I just have done tons and tons of things.
Do you feel like living in a rural area, the statistics are on par with the rest of the country, or is it different here?
I actually, with the state of Indiana, there's a site that the CDC has, and it says that suicide is the ninth leading cause of death in Indiana overall for all general populations. It's the second leading cause of death for people that are 25 to 34. And the third leading cause of death for people 15 to 24. So the statistics, and I could go on and on about that. Part of what happens in our county with a lot of the research that's been done over the last couple of years, they have highlighted, CDC has come out and highlighted that we have two huge high-risk areas in our rural counties, and that is construction workers and coal miners. Their rates are very high compared to other occupations. Living in a rural county, you don't have access to mental health services. Sometimes you may be in a crisis situation, call a provider, and they'll say, well, we can see you in 2 months. Well, that's not going to do any good if you're on the ledge. So I always tell people, go to the emergency room if that happens. Just go to your emergency room and let them triage and decide how to provide services for you.
Those statistics, to me, it sounds more like there's a higher risk for men.
There is a higher risk for men. One of the things I wanted to make sure to point out is with men, right now, the fastest growing percentage per population of people that are taking their lives is in the group of men that are 75 and older. And then when you think about that, you're like, why? Why when a person has lived that long of a life? But the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention talks about shrinking social lives is what causes that. So what I mean by shrinking social lives are emotional isolation. You know, you may have lost your friend network, you may be retired, you may not have your buddies from work, you may physically had to slow down so you can't go golf or go do your coffee groups or whatever it is. Career disruption, which means I'm not working anymore. That's where my identity was. And then something also called, they refer to it as friendship recession. And it's kind of funny. My sister and I were just talking about that. When you get into the 70s, all of a sudden you have friends that become ill. You have friends that pass away unexpectedly. You have friends that can't get out. So all of those networks that you've had in the past to support you have changed.
If you're a woman who is recognizing these things in the men around you, what can you do? Is it recommended to talk to them, or should you send them somewhere?
I would always, and this is what I tell people, if you see a red flag in somebody, you ask them. You just say, hey, I noticed you seem a little bit off. What's going on? Or however, people are afraid.
Mm-hmm.
The old wives' tale or adage was, if I ask them about suicide, it's gonna prompt them to do it. But all of the research that's being done in this field, which is a huge amount right now, says no. That's when you're asked, it's almost a relief that somebody's finally noticed something's going on with me, and then that person can help you get to the resources and the people that you need to get to.
Okay, so speaking of resources, and again, considering the area we're in, where can you see a way to improve that?
I think the advocacy day that I went to and attended. They just finished the National Advocacy Day in Washington, D.C., where a lot of the state and the state's days, like what I went to, the information is transferred and you're meeting your people in D.C. now, the people that can actually make the difference. We did get to see the Senate and House were in session the day that I was there, which was a pretty cool experience. And we got to talk to, I think he was the senator from Northern Indiana, but we're like, we've got to be doing something to help our people here. So advocacy, there's different sites. American Foundation for Suicide Prevention has an Indiana chapter. If you go on there, you can actually sign up for legislative alerts, and they'll tell you what's going on, and it gives you a chance and an opportunity to send your feedback electronically to the representatives in the Senate that are in your area.
Now that you're in the role of volunteerism and you're also working, how do you balance that?
Between working, volunteerism, grandkids, I am just crazy busy all the time. I honestly don't have a lot of time. And one of the things that I've been spending a lot of time on, I'll kind of touch on that. Back in November of 2024, when I was contacted to hold the event in Sullivan for the Survivors Lost Day, the event was fantastic. It really, I'm not trying to brag on myself, but it went very, very well. And it was even recognized in Indianapolis by the feedback on the event. So I'll be hosting that event again this year. It's going to be on November the 22nd. But one of the folks that I want to give a lot of credit to, and because I kind of stole his project with his blessing, but his name is Boone Taylor. Boone Taylor, his first name is actually Chris, but he goes by Boone. He is a veteran from Du Bois County. He has a business of his own there, but he also started a 501(c) called Operation Mind, Body, and Soul. And his work is to help veterans that he knows in his community that are struggling from PTSD, that type of thing, mental health issues. He built a little gym, a kickboxing gym, where you can go work out, or you can use the services, internet services, or just go hang out and be away from people. So he's created these survival packs. That was one of his things when he spoke at my event last November. He brought these packs and showed me what he'd been working on. They look like little bitty backpacks is what they look like. But inside those backpacks, what he had done and what I'm doing in Sullivan County now, those backpacks are given free to people that we know are struggling, or family members of people we know are struggling. But they have a gun lock in them. They have a medication deactivation kit, which can be used if you know a person's at risk for an overdose. Put the pills in there, put water in there, dissolves them. That risk is gone. They have Narcan in there, which I'm getting ready to do some training at our church in Sullivan on the 9th of July, I believe. Narcan is a lifesaver. You can't really hurt a person by using Narcan, but you can sure save people by using Narcan. So we're doing that. Right now, I've handed out about 50, a little over 50 of those packs. I have 100 more that I've got to stuff. There's a lot of interest in them. All of the sheriff's deputies' cars in Sullivan have the packs in them. Right now, in a couple of weeks, I meet with our local fire chiefs and EMTs. They're all interested in saying, you know what, if I'm on a call and I can give this to somebody and help save their life, then everything you guys are doing is fantastic.
If someone wants to be boots on the ground with you and help you by volunteering also, how do they go about doing that?
My personal phone number is 812-240-1896. So much comes through my phone that says spam. If I don't answer, text me. That's probably the best way to reach out to me, because I am super busy and oftentimes I can't take a phone call, but I can look at a text.
You could have any superpower to get this all done and not have one more victim. What would you need?
I think the hardest lesson for me that I ever had to do when I started all this work is accept the fact that there's always going to be a suicide loss. There are people that are very broken, very ill, and unfortunately, sometimes no matter what the resources and the help that's offered to them is given, it just doesn't prevent the loss. That's hard to accept because I want to fix everybody. I'm a fixer type person. I've seen broken people. I've talked to so many people. I actually do some. I'm not a counselor, and I will tell you that up front. I don't have a counseling degree, I've been there. I've been through this path, and even at our church, which is Westside Church in Sullivan, we do counsel with people and get them steered in the right direction if they need services. So I'm available to talk to people at our church also.
If I gave you $1 million and told you could spend it on any project you wanted to, but you wouldn't see the results. So we're talking about a long range project. What would you invest the $1 million in?
I would invest that money in educating people that want to go into the boots on the ground, the counseling services, and the services that directly impact people with suicide. We just have such a loss. And at one time, there was legislation proposed where people that were in that field would get breaks on student loans and everything else. And I think that kind of died out. But we just have to have more resources to help the people. And not have people being told, you can come see me in 2 months when I'm in a crisis situation.
Normally that would be the last question, but I feel like this is a special circumstance and I want to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could add anything to what we've talked about, what would it be?
One bit of information that I always tell everybody to keep in their pocket, I keep this information in my car, both my cars, I keep it on me, is a card for the 988 number. 2 years ago, we used to have a 1-800 number for the crisis line. 2 years ago, it was changed. It's 988. So anybody, if you've got a medical emergency, you call 911. If you have a mental health crisis or any kind of crisis in your life, it could be drugs, alcohol, anything like that, 988 is a crisis line. It's not necessarily a suicide hotline. Call them, they can get you situated. So always remember 911, 988. That's your life-saving numbers, and that's a 24/7 number.
I want to say I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And I hope I never meet another person that has to go through this, but if I do, I'm so glad there's people like you who are here to help.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. I greatly admire your dedication to this. So
Thank you so very much. I hope I make a difference. I sure do.